Hey everyone, this is your boy Feltouch here, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Monday Manchester City podcast. Today is on a Tuesday after last night's fixture against Everton. There was lots of excitement and plenty to talk about. First of all, thank you so much to everybody who watched last week's podcast after the Brighton game. Loads of people watched that. Great response to that video. Thank you so much to everybody who's watched that and subscribed since then. And I can assure you there'll be plenty more great podcasts to come throughout the majority of this next season. So first things first, I suppose we'll talk about last night's game, and there is a lot to talk about. Early doors, first thing to talk about is the team which started. Lots of problems in that for me. Last week on the podcast, I said that City should start with a 4 at the back and wingers. And in the end, I proved to be right, because I felt that Everton were always going to be putting every man behind the ball. They're going to be defensive. I don't think they're the quickest team, with the exception of Calvert-Lewin. And last night, I think I was proved right. We didn't work very well with the 5 at the back. We created some chances, but we didn't take the chances early doors in the game. And we ended up playing Leroy Sané at left wing back, and that eventually led to the goal coming for Everton in the first half because he gave the ball away. And the most ridiculous part about it is because Sané played left wing back a few times last season and struggled. He played in pre-season a couple of times at left wing back and struggled. And then on Wednesday, he played against Girona at left wing back, and you guessed it again, he struggled and in fact was at fault for the goal there. Now, normal rational people would look at that and think, yes, well, there's been some mistakes made in that position before. Well, how about we don't play him at left wing back again, because you can see he struggled in that position. But Guardiola, obviously, yes, there's injuries to Mendy, but still, normal people would probably play Danilo. I accept that he didn't have the best of games against Brighton, but he still looked very solid to me. But the decision to go out and then play Sané at left wing back to me just made no sense at all, and the likelihood is for the majority of that game, City were, without the red card, we're going to have the majority of possession. So for me, a 4 at the back made much more sense. I know he wants to play with this system, and he will do it continually throughout the season because Guardiola's a very stubborn manager and he's not likely to change. But for me, he shouldn't have started with the 5 at the back. I don't think it really suited City and the way we would play against Everton. I felt like we need to get round their flanks. I think we could have exposed them quite a lot, especially down the left back position or the right back position, because I don't think they've got a great amount of pace. I don't think Phil Jagielka's very quick at all either. So there's lots of areas for me to exploit them. And they in fact turned up last night with 3 defensive midfielders. They had Idrissa Gueye, they had Schneiderlin, and Tom Davies just sat a little bit in front of them. And I think there was plenty of areas to then exploit them. And going into the first half, we created quite a lot of chances. We hit the post, of course, and the most ridiculous part about it was Sergio Aguero on 2-3 occasions deciding to not shoot when he had very, very obvious efforts at goal. Now, it seems to me there is a confidence problem perhaps with him, or I don't really quite know, because sometimes he does take a few games to get started into a season, but then again he scored last week against Brighton. It just made no sense why he decided to take a couple of touches. There was one occasion where Phil Jagielka was actually lying on the floor and he decided to try and take another touch, and try and walk it into the goal, and then was forced wide. And it was just a little bit ridiculous. And then, of course, we hit the post. And then, of course, you know, it's always going to happen. It's typical City. We conceded with near enough the first shot of the entire game against us. I think we had one shot previously by Calvert-Lewin. But the goal for me comes from so many problems. There's very obvious things, such as Leroy Sané kicking the ball, and then there's less obvious things. So if you were at the game last night, you will have noticed, come around the 25th, 30th minute mark, Guardiola decided to switch the positioning in the back 3. So Vincent Kompany was playing on the right of the back 3, and he swapped in with Otamendi, who was playing on the left of the back 3. Those two swapped over. Now, I think the reasoning behind that was the fact that Vincent Kompany is probably better on the ball than Otamendi, and he wanted Vincent Kompany to be further up the game and getting in those good positions going forward, where he's able to influence the play a little bit more than what Otamendi was doing. And I can understand that, but if there's not a problem, you don't need to fix it. Carry on as you're doing. They've obviously worked in that back 3 before. They know the positioning. Yes, they're supposedly supposed to be flexible, but if you look at that Chelsea back 3, those players do not change what position they play in every single week. They always have for example, Gary Cahill on the left side, or the centre of the middle, and Cesar Azpilicueta on the right hand side, and David Luiz either on the centre or on the left. I can't remember precisely what it is, but that they know their position inside and out. And if you look at City last night, they decided to change things, and Vincent Kompany was left caught out on the left hand side of that defence. And on top of that, as much as I would like to blame Leroy Sané, I can't blame him too much because he's playing in a position which he's not used to. It's difficult for him to get back in that position, and it's one of the least rewarding positions on the pitch playing left wing back. It's so tough. You're expected to get forward, you're expected to get back. It's very tough indeed. Yes, he gives the ball away and he probably should have done a bit better, but there's so many other things when you go and look at that goal. There's so many other problems, and that goal was very easily preventable. The fact that we decided to change things around in the back three, for me, I just didn't understand. And for me, personally, I think that Vincent Kompany should be the man in the centre of that City back three if we are going to play a back three. He's not the quickest of the three of them, and I also think that he's a lot more powerful and he's a lot smarter. So when those balls get played across the middle of the box, he's stronger and he's able to read the game a lot better than both Otamendi and Stones. And if you watch the goal, you can see John Stones does not look at Wayne Rooney until the ball ends up in the back of the net. He is not watching him for 1 second. He's got his arm in the air, protesting for offside, which it wasn't offside. I don't really know why he's claiming for it. Let the linesman do that decision. You don't need to claim for it. Maybe give a shout. You don't need your arm in the air. He doesn't look at Wayne Rooney. He's looking left. His head positioning, his body shape is all completely wrong. And then you see Wayne Rooney coming onto him and he sticks the ball in the back of the net. I think that Ederson could have done perhaps a little bit better, but he was hit in pretty decent amount of speed from Wayne Rooney's strike, and it should never have ended up on his boot if John Stones actually knows how to mark a defender, if actually John Stones knows how to mark a striker. And it's just a completely ridiculous situation because although we've been linked with Johnny Evans, and I don't think he's the best defender in the world, I don't know whether he will have been able to prevent it. It's just one of those situations where you can't read the future, you don't really know what's going to happen. But John Stones, we bought him for £50 million, and for me, this year is a make or break season for him. Last year, we can accept a few mistakes. This year, he really has to start cracking down and starting to work on his defensive ability. And to be honest with you, in pre-season, I thought he had a good pre-season, not just in the goals he scored and his defensive ability as well. But Wayne Rooney's a smart striker, and you've got to start attacking these players, attacking these balls, and stop that ball from getting into the box in the first place. That ball shouldn't have been allowed in from Calvert-Lewin. And secondly, also, John Stones should have cut that out. And I think that Ederson was a little bit unfortunate. It's a difficult one to save. I thought his overall performance was very good. I mean, it's very difficult to sort of put players down at this sort of stage of the season. I know we did it a lot with Bravo last season, but he's not a young keeper. You look at someone, for example, like Ederson. He's only 23. He's a decent looking goalkeeper, very impressed with his kicking, his range of passing, very composed, not scared when he gets the ball at his feet at all, so unlike someone like Bravo last season. So I was pretty happy with his overall performance, and I think he's going to blossom into a very good goalkeeper. He's very wide, he's stocky, and I think that's very decent for a Premier League goalkeeper. He's the perfect build for me. Very much in the same way that David De Gea was built into his Manchester United career. He was slow to start, but then he came good after about a year or so. I think he'll do the exact same thing with Ederson, if not sooner. Now, for the rest of the first half, the biggest talking point, of course, is the referee. I think I've spent a good combined 3-4 hours on this podcast talking about how badly the refereeing decisions have been against City over the last year, and especially with one man himself, Bobby Madley. How many times have I talked about how poor this fella is at refereeing? I've done it so many times, and it's just getting frustrating beyond belief. He really is entering the Mike Dean realms where he wants to be the main man, he wants to be the man who's talked about in the media sort of thing. I think he really does enjoy being the man in the middle, a little bit too much than being the silent officiating type of referee. Now, the first yellow card I can understand because he dived in, but he didn't actually touch Leighton Baines, and Leighton Baines rolled around and then Kyle Walker, the yellow card there, despite the fact that he didn't actually touch him. But Kyle Walker did definitely lunge in there at the time, and I think it was definitely a yellow card from certainly where I was sitting in the crowd last night. But the second one is just absolutely ridiculous. You look at it, he's backing in, Yes, he looks and turns to him, but Calvert-Lewin holds his face as he goes down. He did not touch him in the face. That is the most ridiculous part about it. And even if he did, there was so little contact there that you cannot justify that being either a foul or a free kick. You would not see that given on many days of the week. I mean, there was a minute and a half between those. And what gets me so frustrated is the fact that Michael Oliver is stood there at the side of the pitch as the fourth official and isn't able to see what is going on. I just don't understand how the guy is literally stood, he's staring directly at it, and he's given that and said, yep, that's a definite red card, send him off as the second yellow. It is just ridiculous. And it was the exact same with the Schneiderlin situation. Again, the first yellow card was a definite yellow card. But the second one, Michael Oliver and the linesman are both looking at that as the fourth official. He can say to Bobby Madley, yes, there was contact on the ball. And Everton fans will definitely feel aggrieved about it. And the most frustrating thing about it all is because the system of refereeing in this country, you can't rescind yellow cards. So it means that Schneiderlin and Walker will both be suspended for the next couple of games. Now, up until the point of Walker's red card, I thought he had a very poor game. He hardly touched the ball at all in his entirety of the first half. Didn't really get forward, didn't really do all too much at all. And I think that when we went to the back four, when Danilo came on in the second half, we looked a much, much better team. We were always going to be offensively attacking in the second half, because if you lose by 2-0, who cares? If you lose, if you draw, if you get the win, it's a fantastic result. You have to go for it. And I thought that all of Guardiola's decisions and I felt that all the substitutions yesterday were very positive and were all correct when you look back at it. I think Yaya could have perhaps been a decent impact on the game because he's one of those players who gets involved in those sort of fixtures. But again, all the players which came on had a huge impact. Sterling's finishing should have been a little bit better. In fact, he could have had 2 or 3 in the game. But his overall performance was fantastic. He ran at players, he took people on, and that's exactly what I love about Sterling, because I think that not many City players do take people on, and it's great to have someone like him in the side. And of course, his goal was absolutely fantastic. Really well done. Fantastic finish. It's difficult to do though, because he's coming down. He's had a few wild shots from before that, and the pressure's on, and he delivered. Decent finish from him. Danilo, fantastic. Gave us plenty of width. His deliveries into the box were fantastic. He's big, he's strong, he's tall. He put in some big challenges as well when he came on. Nearly scored himself, and a nice ball in which helped set up the goal. And Bernardo Silva, in his first game in English football, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Really, really good quality. He really never lost the ball apart from a run where he went round the back of one of their players. He was fantastic. He's got a great turn of pace. His touch is exceptional, and he's a player I'm very, very excited about seeing. But after the game, when you analyse it, I think for City, it's 1 point gained rather than 2 points lost when you look at it. Although before kick-off, I felt that 3 points was must. It was a necessary 3 points if you want to go on and win the title. But when you look at the circumstances of the game, you're a player down after 40 minutes. You've a goal down as well. And then Everton are a club which has spent £150 million in the summer themselves. And for me, they showed zero ambition in the second half. I think it's a point which is... I think for Everton before the game, they would have been happy with a point. But when you go into it at half-time, 1-0 up, and a player down for the opposition, I think Everton really should have exploited City and done a lot better than what they actually did do. The decision in the second half to make a double substitution and take Ashley Williams off and Tom Davies as well, and bringing on Sigurdsson and Klaassen, 2 fairly offensive players, did not work in Everton's favour. City were always going to attack. If we lost 2-0, it didn't matter. But we were always going to go on the attack in the second half. And Ronald Koeman, for me, bottled that. I can understand in a way why he tried to do it, but it simply didn't work. And the decision to take Ashley Williams off, and I thought he was Everton's best defender yesterday, was very, very strange to me. And in the end, it turned out that Everton have in fact lost points. So at the end of the day, I think City can be happy with the point in that game. But still, we haven't beaten Everton. It's a game which we have to win. I can see United just turning them over. They've not got a lot of pace. We didn't look all too organised last night, City. There's so many different areas. And for me, City playing with wingers is so much better. I think next game, drop this system we're playing at the moment. Go to a 4 at the back, have 2 wingers taking on Bournemouth who are probably going to play 5 at the back themselves, and on top of that, I don't think that Aguero and Gabriel Jesus are working together up front. They don't follow each other's runs, they don't look to play each other in, they're completely different players on the pitch, and I think that it's best to have someone on the bench to come on, whether it be Aguero, whether it be Jesus, and at the moment I'd much rather see Sané and Sterling bombing on in behind, making runs in behind, which he didn't do until about the 50th, 60th minute mark last night. And I think that it's probably time to ditch this system. Don't play two up front, because they obviously at the moment are not working well together in the system which they're playing. Now, other things to talk about, I suppose we can talk about the Girona game in the midweek, which was probably one of the worst games of football most City fans have seen. If you bothered to watch it, oh God, it was terrible. It was absolutely atrocious. Really no effort. It was a game which you know that City players were thinking, let's just get through this and get back on the plane and get back to England, because nobody really cares. The decision to play the game in the first place was all a bit strange. It was obviously a marketing exercise to help build the profile of Girona. Obviously City have a big involvement in the club and they've obviously loaned loads of players out over there. But it just didn't really seem to make much sense, and whether it's actually affected City's performance today, or last night I should say, is it's a little bit strange for me, just because it seems like you're making players play games where they didn't really need to actually play. It's all a bit strange for me. But in the game, I have to say there were some impressive performances from Manchester City players. Pablo Maffeo was absolutely fantastic and was the best player on the pitch. And again at the weekend, when I watched Girona playing against Atletico Madrid in a 2-2 draw, Pablo Maffeo was great in that game as well. And I think that some of the lone players there will do pretty well on loan there this season. We've got Douglas Luiz, who was signed for £10 million, Alex Garcia, also Pablo Maffeo, I think Marlos Moreno's there as well, and a new signing from Austria as well, Coyote, and he looked good at the weekend, I've got to say. If you didn't watch the Girona game against Atletico Madrid, they drew 2-2, they were 2-0 up and then bottled it, despite the fact that Griezmann had been sent off, and actually drew the game 2-2 at the end. But it was for a fantastic save by Oblak in goal, which kept out Coyote in the last 2 minutes or so of the game. It was a fantastic header, and he's very, very quick. He's lively. It'd be interesting to see how he does so far this season at Girona, but still, it was an interesting game. And in terms of City's loan watch, there's definitely some potential for some of those boys to come back and play very well, especially Pablo Maffeo. I'm keeping an eye on him, and I think he's going to be a top player. He reads the game very well. He's quite quick, not afraid to get stuck in, great work rate. I'm excited by him, and hopefully we can get him back next season and actually get him some game time. On top of that, other signings happening at Manchester City in the last week. We've seen Samir Nasri go over to Antalyaspor. I think that's the name of the club. It's a strange decision, but obviously with this overhanging doping scandal around him, not many clubs are going to be looking to buy him. Plus, he's got £210,000 a week, so not many clubs are looking to bring him in. Still, a very good footballer, a fantastic servant for Manchester City in the times which he was here. He was injured a lot, unfortunately, but the year which we won the league in 2014, he was probably our best player that season. On top of that, he was a great player. Really fantastic. I think it was just his attitude off the pitch has been a big problem, but it's a shame to see him go. I think last year he could have been important in the team, but he decided to go out on loan instead of trying to fight for his place, and now he's heading off to Turkey, aged 30, 31, and we'll have to see how his career progresses from here on out. But still, I think we've recouped about £5 million at most. I think he actually went on a free transfer, and then like £4 million in potential add-ons later on. It's a kind of a strange situation, but I think it's just basically because of this whole doping scandal which is overhanging over him. Wilfried Boney could perhaps still be moving over to Swansea. Apparently that deal's going to be done in the next week or so. We're still waiting on that one and praying that happens. Another player on the loan watch from last week was Angus Gunn. He played pretty well, I've got to say, for Norwich against Aston Villa. He kept them in that game. I think the final result in that one was 4-2. And if it wasn't for Angus Gunn, I think that Norwich would have lost about 5-6-0. It was very, very poor. But I have to say he was great in goal, so that's another interesting one to keep an eye on. In terms of players coming into the club, the other day I did a video about Johnny Evans potentially joining Manchester City. It was a tongue-in-cheek video, I have to say. There wasn't really all too much behind it. It was just sort of taking the mick a bit because he's obviously an ex-United player, and with City being one of the richest clubs in the world, to be linked to a player like Johnny Evans is kind of a bit surreal. But it seems like that transfer is maybe dying down a bit. I personally cannot see it happening for two reasons. The money involved is a lot more more than City perhaps anticipated. And the second reason is the fact that West Brom will not sell him for love nor money. I think he's an integral player for that side, and Tony Pulis has spent the whole transfer window trying to buy a centre-back, and I can't see him trying to sell their captain especially. I think that City could perhaps look at somebody from Middlesbrough like Ben Gibson. I think he'd be a decent option. I think he'd probably be the better player. But I still don't think he's the answer to a defensive problem. In fact, the only reason why we would sign him is English, but I still would like to see City give a chance to someone like Tosin Adebayor. We've got an academy, let's use it. And I don't really see the point in buying someone like Ben Gibson, whose side got relegated. And yes, he did have flashes of brilliance last season, but he wasn't that great when I watched their game against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. So it does fill me with a little bit of worry, and I don't think he's going to be the answer to a defensive problem. I still think that City are lacking a big striker. Someone like Llorente, for example. I know he's injured, but I think he would be a good plan B striker. Someone to have on the bench, because you looked at last night, we were putting balls in towards the box at the end, and there was nobody on the end of them. And I think if we had a big striker, he would give us a fantastic, different dimension to our side, and I think that's one player which we would need. Now, looking ahead to next week's game, we've got a fixture against Bournemouth on Saturday. It's always an interesting fixture, but Bournemouth have started the season terribly. They really have done. They haven't scored, they've had a lot of possession in the games, but they haven't really done all too much at all. Now, looking at their side, they've got one or two injuries, they're changing things around, they're still trying out different systems. Jermaine Defoe is still yet to start this season for Bournemouth, but for me, City have always done well at Bournemouth. The last two seasons we've gone there, we've performed very, very well indeed. Gabriel Jesus picked up an injury last season, but we still went on and picked up a decent result there. And this year, I think it's going to be a tough result. Eddie Howe has really got to get that Bournemouth team going at the start of the year, and this is sort of a fixture where they're going to have to sort of get their game up. They got about 80% possession away at West Bromwich Albion, so they're very happy to stay on the ball, but the problem for them is trying to keep clean sheets from dead ball situations. And at the weekend, when Neg played against Watford and lost 2-0, they were fairly average, I have to say. So it's a big fixture. We'll go over to Bournemouth and we'll have to put in a good shift. I think that City will perhaps try out a 4 at the back situation against them. But the problem is, because Kyle Walker's now suspended, who we play at left back, Benjamin Mendy's not going to be fit. So I think that Pep again is going to play with a 5 at the back and Sané at left wing back. Despite the fact that I disagree with it, I think he probably will end up doing that. Or potentially seeing Fernandinho at right wing back and then Danilo at left wing back. I'm not too sure, but I think he's going to stick with a 5 at the back once again. Especially because the fact that Bournemouth played 5 at the back at the weekend as well. Now, it'll be a tough game, but you'd expect City to win these sort of fixtures. And what worries me is the fact that United have started off this season so confidently. They're looking very, very dangerous, and if City don't start well themselves, we could be in a really tough situation with Arsenal. Sorry, we could be in a very tough situation with United speeding ahead of us. Of course, the season isn't won in September, but for me, they looking a lot stronger than what we are now. We still don't have our system sorted. They know their best 11. They know the side which is going to be playing most of the games this season. Yes, they haven't got as many injuries, but still, they're a very decent side. And we'll have to see how the season progresses, but it's already hottening up. Refereeing decisions have already cost City so far this season, and I'm sure, I can guarantee there'll be plenty more throughout the season. So, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below. If you agree or disagree with any of the comments made in this video, please let me know down in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Arrivederci.